Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
From time to time, I get into a discussion with people about useful classes. People will say, well, what you learn in high school, what you learn in college, really not useful. And I said, well, there are useful classes out there. And so we'll get a discussion about what are useful classes. And arguably, yeah, there are some that weren't worth the time. Just kind of space fillers. Could you get through college a whole lot quicker? Does high school have to be as long as it is? And there's arguments both ways. I mean, part of it has to do, certainly with high school, has to do with just relative maturity. I mean, if you could compact high school into a single year and have people graduating high school at the ages of 14 and 15, arguably not fully mature physically, mentally, emotionally, it's probably not a good thing. So, keeping kids in high school and pushing them along and really pushing them along and really stretching them. Certainly there's some merit to that. Does college need to be as long as it is? I don't know. I mean, again, we can kind of debate things. I think there's a whole lot to college other than just the education that you get. But that's, again, neither here nor there. But when these questions come up about, okay, what are useful classes, I always have a couple that I throw out there. Useful class in high school, typing. I took a typing class. And that might sound silly in today's day and age, and it probably is, but up until the time that social media really became popular and everybody had a keyboard in front of them, typing served me well. It really served me well, and I assume there's probably not typing classes anymore, but I took a typing class. I want to say it was either eighth grade, high school. In my high school, it was all kind of combined. But to learn about a keyboard and how to put your hands on there and how to make it work, it served me well. It served me well in typing papers because there were times I had to type papers. My mom could type. My mom helped my dad with his dissertation, and she was a good typer, a good typist. I don't know what's the proper term for it. Doesn't matter. It's not part of this. But she wasn't going to come to college with me and type papers. And even when I was in high school, she was working on her own things and didn't have time to type my term papers. And that when you got into high school, at least my high school, those were some of the requirements. You had to, nobody wanted to read my chicken scratch. They wanted to see typing. So typing was very useful. In college, it was very useful. Someone gave me for graduation a typewriter. I think my parents did. Thought it was a horrible gift. Turned out to be one of the best gifts ever. Everyone always wanted to borrow my typewriter. The notion that I could sit and I could type my own papers and work on my own terms, where other people had to find somebody and pay somebody to type their papers. It was a game changer. So the first is typing. The second class I have found to be eternally useful and still eternally useful, and something I would recommend to really anybody in any walk of life, really, is accounting, is understanding accounting. Accounting accounting deals with money and understanding how money flows. That's what really accounting taught me, is how money flows and understanding the difference between cash and income and a balance sheet and income. And you might be just kind of, if you're an accountant, you understand what I'm saying. If you're a non-accountant, you're probably laughing at what I'm saying, but there is a distinction. If somebody hands you $1,000, it's not necessarily income. It could be a loan. It could be an investment in something you're doing. And how that is reflected on your finances, it determines how it's going to be taxed, how it's going to be treated, and just understanding all of that is really important. Understanding depreciation and how depreciation is really kind of a non-cash transaction. And this is not a podcast, nor is this an episode about accounting, but I'm just saying that understanding accounting, a rudimentary class on accounting, is invaluable because money permeates everything. It's involved in everything. Sorry, I'm struggling with that word here. It's in everything. You know, if you're a curator at a museum, you need to understand money because you're going to have a budget. You know, everybody deals with money. You need to understand money, and accounting is an important piece of that. The third class I will throw out there and really kind of ties into this program is I took a class on negotiation. For those who don't know, I have a joint degree. I have a law degree. I got a joint degree while at the Ohio State University. I got a law degree and I got an MBA. And the way it worked is you spent your first year in law school, second year in business school, third year you did a lot of joint classes. You took classes at the law school and you took classes in the business school, not a full load in either. And then the last year was just all law school to finish it all up. And so that third year I had classes back and forth. And there was one class where it was shared, students from the law school and the business school were in it together. So I was kind of in my element because it was all the people that I knew from law school, or a lot of people I knew from law school, and the people I knew from business school. It was kind of like my worlds were coming together. Ohio State University is a big campus, and the business school and the law school were a ways away. In fact, it's even further now. But anyhow, the negotiation class was a great class just to really kind of understand how negotiation works and the different tactics in negotiation. Really kind of opened my eyes to how to start to deal with people. You know, up until then, I figured, okay, negotiation is just about having a louder voice, and you realize that that's not really it. Negotiation's about kind of meeting in the middle and compromising. So anyhow, my negotiation professor, whom I remember, Dr. Roy Lewicki, he had his own book on negotiation, a book he had written. And I had other professors who had those similar situations, but this was somebody I'd really gotten to know, and I thought it was kind of neat. So at any rate, recently I stumbled across a post in Cyblog, which is a newsletter I subscribe to. And the post was how to make the perfect apology. And so I started reading through it, and the person that Cyblog is talking about, and the people behind Cyblog, or the author of this particular snippet in Cyblog, is psychologist Jeremy Dean. He's the author of Cyblog. But anyhow, he's quoting from a Roy Lewicki study and on how to make the perfect apology. So I thought, wow, this is really neat. So I really started digging into it because I don't think Roy Lewicki would remember me. Why would he? Probably thousands of students at the Ohio State University, but I remember him. It was a great class. One of the 3 classes I would recommend that anybody take. But he published this study in the Journal of Negotiation and Conflict Management Research. And this was back in 2016. So I started digging into it, and I realized that he's at the Ohio State University, and the person who has put together a summary of this study and sent it out to the world for Cyblog to pick up is none other than my brother-in-law, Jeff Grabmeyer. So kind of a small world sort of a thing, but let's talk about what's the perfect apology. Dr. Lewicki talks about 6 components to an effective apology. 1 is the expression of regret. 2 is the explanation of what went wrong. 3, the acknowledgement of responsibility. The acknowledgement, yeah, I made a mistake. This is a mistake. 4, the declaration of repentance. I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. 5 is an offer to repair. How can I make you whole? I've damaged you. How can I make you whole? And then 6 is the request for forgiveness. Now, before I talk about the conclusions of the study, let me talk about how the study was done. What they did was they had people read a variety of scenarios in which a person made a mistake, for which they needed to apologize. And the apology contained either 1, 3, or all 6 of the components. And then the people rated the different, the grades of the apologies. They graded the apologies for their effectiveness. So what they determined was this, and I think this is important for people to understand. That, again, there are 6 components, but the top of the list that made an apology most effective was basically acknowledging that you're responsible. Yeah, I screwed up. I'm sorry. It was my mistake. Basically saying it was your fault. And I get that. I won't dispute Professor Lewicki's work. And if he told me something else was number one, I would go with it. Just I'm trusting him. But saying that one, it's like, yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. When somebody comes to me and tells me they've made a mistake, my heart kind of warms a little bit. Okay, they've fessed up. They've become vulnerable. Where I find myself getting mad is where somebody will say something akin to, yeah, I missed a call. Sorry, we had a call. I missed it. I'm sorry. My scheduling software messed up. Or I'm sorry, my wife double booked me, or my assistant did this. Basically pushing it off on somebody else. That just drives me crazy. And I kind of get it now. I basically, based on what Professor Lewicki is saying, is that they're not taking responsibility for it. So the number one thing for an effective apology is basically taking responsibility for it. I would imagine, of the 6, certainly expression of regret. I think that's just kind of a given within an apology, but maybe not. People could say, well, I'm sorry, my bad, and not really be regretful about it. But the most effective part of your apology is just acknowledging that you took responsibility for it, or taking responsibility for things. The second most important thing is being willing to make reparations. Commitment to undo whatever or fix damages. If you harm somebody or somebody harms me, and they bump my car, hey, listen, I'll pay to get it fixed. I'm really sorry, it was my fault. I'll pay to get it fixed. Okay, there's a little bit of hassle in there in me getting my car fixed. Okay, it's a big hassle, but you get a rental car, you deal with it, but you're really not damaged. You're really not damaged, and life can go on, and you can deal with it. But if somebody says, well, I'm really sorry, it was my fault, I damaged your car, but good luck to you getting it fixed. Yeah, that's just, I appreciate you taking responsibility, but that's just kind of the emotional aspect of it. You didn't actually fix the problem. So, fixing what's wrong, fixing the damages you created, and sometimes that's not always easy, but at least offering to try and figure out a way to undo the damage. Sometimes the damage can't be undone. You can't unring a bell. Something been said, and it just can't be undone. The situations I think of was where somebody has said something publicly about you that's maybe not wrong, maybe it's their opinion, but it's damaging, it's hurtful. It's hard to unring that bell. It's hard to unring it. It's hard to take that back. The damage is there, and there's nothing you can do. But the 2 most important aspects of the apology, again, are, acknowledging responsibility and offering to repair the damage. Those are the 2. Doesn't really talk about the others, as where they fall into it, and you can certainly debate them for yourself. I'm going to tell you in a minute. Which one is the least important of these. But again, the 6 components are expression of regret. Yeah, I'm sorry. I feel bad. Explanation of what went wrong. Acknowledgement, it was my fault. It was all on me. declaration of repentance. You know, I'm truly sorry. That's 1 and 4 seem to be the same. Offer of repair, offer to, make reparations of some sort, fix the damage. And then the last one is request for apology. And the least effective of them is the request for forgiveness. The least effective is the last one, the request for forgiveness. That seems to have the least impact of being an effective apology. And to me, that makes sense. Because when you're asking somebody for forgiveness, you're asking something from them. I hurt you. It damaged you. I'm sorry. It was my fault. It was all my fault. Let me try and fix the damages this way. Oh, can you forgive me? You're asking something of them. And that's, that's not necessarily, they're the ones who are hurt. Why should they be doing something to you? Forgiveness is something they need to find in their own heart, and you shouldn't be asking them for it. I don't know if it's necessarily anything wrong with it, but as Professor Lewicki indicates, as he indicates, it's just not an effective part of an apology. It's not. If you had to leave something out, time or whatever, that would be the thing to leave out. It's just not the most important thing. And I totally understand that. So those are the 6 components to a good apology. Something to keep in mind next week, what I'm going to talk about is the power of apologies and to what extent apologies really matter, and do they matter. So just kind of a little bit of a tease for next week's program. Have a great day.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.